Hi, today we're going to talk about identifying theme in a text. What is theme? Well, you've probably talked about theme before. You probably talked about it in 6th grade, and you probably defined it as the underlying message of a story, or sometimes people define it as the lesson that the author wants you to learn. What it always has in common is that theme is a big idea about life, and that it's universal. So it can be applied to anyone living anywhere, no matter what their age is or their income level or where they're living. If we translate a story into 50 different languages, theme would come across. It would be the same for everybody, even though they didn't speak the same language. Finding theme. When you were little and you read little kid stories, the author gave you the theme. They came right out and said it. That's because little kids really can't infer yet. They don't know how to do that. Most likely, though, the stories that you're going to be reading, the author's not going to come right out and state the theme. Take a minute, though, take a look at this one and figure out the theme. I looked at all the candy I could buy. I had the dollar right there in my hand, but suddenly I didn't feel hungry. I wish that I hadn't stolen the dollar. I wish that I hadn't taken the money from my brother's bank. I don't think I want to buy anything today, I muttered quickly to the clerk. Then I ran from the store. I had learned something important. It's better to be honest than to have money. So what sentence in the story contains the theme? Take a second and think about it. Hit pause, and when you're ready, come back. If you said that the last sentence, which I just accidentally moved, stated the theme, you were correct. They learned something important. It's better to be honest than to have money. Most of the time, however, authors don't state the theme. Instead, they have readers make an inference. For the most part, stories that you're going to read in middle school and high school and college on your own are going to have unstated themes. And what you're going to have to do is take information from the beginning, from the middle, and from the end to figure out what the author wants you to learn. Let's take a look at this story. We knew it was time to set the butterfly free. We had seen it make its chrysalis and emerge. Then it had flown around in the cage, trying to stretch its wings. Although we felt a little sad, we opened the lid to the cage one evening. The butterfly seemed confused and didn't leave at first. Then in one burst of zigzagging fluttering, it erupted from the cage and flew all the way to the end of the playground and down the hill by the school. That was the right thing to do, Patrick said. I know, I answered, even though I already worried about the butterfly. What would it eat? How would it live? All right, so take a look at this and think about what sentences, what clues help us figure out the theme. Pause it, and when you think you have all the clues in your head, hit play, and you'll see the next slide. All right, we have several clues. One is the word free. Another is the word flew, or flew all the way to the end of the playground. Another is that it's the right thing to do. So what theme does that lead us to? Think about those clues, hit pause, and when you have a theme in your head, hit play again. Well, it could lead us to the theme that wild creatures should be set free. You've probably read something with this theme before, and that's the thing about theme. They're repeated ideas. There aren't 1,000 themes out there. There are probably a good 100 or so that get repeated over and over and over in story. All right. Let's see if you can find the theme in this poem. Read it, pause, read, think about the questions on the screen, and come up with a theme that would go with it. Then hit play again. Two themes could really pop up. One is good can come from bad, and another is a cheerful attitude can overcome obstacles. Oftentimes, there's more than one theme in a story. What makes it a good theme is that it's supported or supportable with details from the text. So, for good can come from bad, there's some evidence. The day starts out badly because of the rain, but then the speaker builds indoor forts and the speaker realizes that rainy days can still be fun. That would be text evidence that could support that first theme. Another theme is that a cheerful attitude could overcome obstacles. See if you can find some evidence to support this one. Hit pause. When you think you have the evidence, hit play again to see the answers. All right. If you look here, in this stanza, the eyes are sad, rain is bad, everything seems horrible. But then they come downstairs, they get the chairs, the blankets and sheets are looking neat. Inside forts instead of sports, rainy day tears can turn to cheers. That whole thing is text evidence for a cheerful attitude overcoming obstacles, because now all of a sudden they have a different attitude. They got the chairs, the blankets, and the sheets, now it looks neat. There's forts instead of sports, and that's fun, and tears turn into cheers, so that's a good thing. So all of that is text evidence. Okay, well, hopefully this gives you a little more insight into theme. Now you're going to read Thank You, Ma'am in this book, in the textbook, and try and come up with a theme and 3 pieces of evidence that can support the theme. Remember, you'll also need an analysis. Explain how your evidence does support your theme, because that's what you're going to use to do your literary analysis, which we'll talk about later.